Ayomide's eyes darted nervously. So what do you expect me to do, Kambili? Return a child I have loved and nurtured, raised for 6 whole years. And what do you expect me to do, Ayomide? Watch another woman call my son hers? Watch him grow up and not be a part of his life? No, I will not. I don't care how hard I must fight, but I will get my son back. Ayomide's face hardened. You have no proof that he's your son. A resemblance is not enough proof. Kambili stood there, stunned for what looked like ages. Her mouth opened and closed. No words were forming. The moment Ayomide turned and noticed her presence, she was also taken aback. But before she could say anything, Kambili turned around and bolted out of the mall, abandoned everything she had picked. She needed air. She needed to breathe. Kambili could not sleep that night. She tossed from one side of the bed to the other, her mind replaying the image of the little boy's smile, his eyes, his voice, his tiny steps. Everything reminded her of Chinonso. No, she whispered to herself in the darkness. It cannot be. Chinonso is gone. I saw him. I buried him. But no matter how she tried to convince herself, her heart kept saying otherwise. She wondered how possible it was that the child was actually hers and Chukwuka's. By morning, she had made up her mind. She needed answers as soon as possible. She needed to see Dr. Obasi immediately. She walked into the hospital where she had done the IVF procedure years ago. The place smelled of antiseptic and the white walls made her even more nervous. A nurse led her to the consulting room. Good morning, Madam Kambili, the doctor greeted, adjusting his glasses as he looked at her file. How may I help you today? Kambili swallowed hard, her hands trembling. Doctor, I need you to explain something to me because I am confused right now. When the procedure was carried out 6 years ago, how sure were you that it was successful? The doctor looked at her with surprise. What do you mean by that? You carried a pregnancy to term. That usually means it worked. Kambili shook her head quickly. No, doctor. You don't understand. Something happened yesterday. I saw a boy and he looks exactly like my late son. Exactly like him. And guess who he was with? Mrs. Ayomide Debo. Tears filled her eyes. Please tell me the truth, doctor. Was it possible that the IVF failed? The doctor leaned back thoughtful, removed his glasses and sighed. Madam Kambili, to be honest with you, yes. Sometimes the implantation does not happen. The only way a woman in that situation can still get pregnant is if she has natural intercourse around the same time. Kambili froze. Her chest tightened. You mean? Yes, the doctor continued softly. If you were intimate with your husband around that period, then the pregnancy you carried might have been his child, your own child, not from the IVF. Her mouth fell open. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Jesus Christ, she whispered, tears spilling out of her eyes. So, Doctor, you're saying that that boy is mine? The doctor's face softened. Madam, I cannot say with 100% certainty without a DNA test, but from what you've described, it is very possible. Kambili staggered to her feet, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. The doctor stood to offering her tissues. Madam, please sit down. I understand your pain, but you must also understand that you signed a contract then, and it was assumed the baby was from the IVF. I don't care about the contracts, she snapped, her voice rising. That boy is my blood, my husband's child, and I want my child back. She collapsed back into the chair, sobbing bitterly. For the first time in years, her grief carried a spark of hope. Somewhere in the world, a part of her husband was still alive, living, breathing, laughing. She made up her mind that no matter what, she was going to get her son back. When Kambili returned from the doctor's office, she locked herself in her room for hours and cried until her eyes were swollen. That evening, her sister Ebube, who noticed how solemn she had suddenly become, went to check up on her, just to be sure. Ebube was now 20, tall and graceful. Her worry became surprise when she entered and saw her sister's face. Nne, why are you crying again? Ebube asked, sitting gently beside her. Kambili sniffed, her voice breaking. Ebube, I saw him yesterday. Ebube frowned. You saw who? I saw my child, the child I carried. It was not from the IVF, it was my husband's child, my Chukwuka's baby. I saw him, Ebube, at the mall. He looks exactly like Chinonso. Ebube, the resemblance is so unmistakable. I thought I was dreaming until I saw Madam Ayomide with him. Then I knew. Ebube gasped, covering her mouth. Are you serious? How is it even possible? I thought... Kambili nodded slowly, gripping her sister's hands. I was at the doctor's today, and the doctor confirmed it is possible. And I know what I saw. That boy is mine. For a long moment, the room was silent, except for Kambili's shaking breathing. Then Ebube squeezed her hands firmly. So, sister, what do you plan to do now? I want my child, Kambili replied coldly. Ebube scoffed. Sister Kambili, you know it is not possible. They paid you money you don't have, and I doubt they will want to take the money back. Those people will not give that child without a fight. Determination shone in Kambili's eyes. Then we will fight. I will sell off everything I own if I have to, but I will get my child back. Kambili's eyes filled again with tears, but this time they were mixed with hope and determination. A week later, with encouragement from her family, Kambili called and requested a private meeting with Mrs. Ayomide Debo. They agreed to meet at a quiet cafe in town. Kambili arrived first, her palms sweating as she gripped her handbag tightly. When Ayomide finally walked in, elegant in her flowing gown as usual and polished smile, Kambili's heart raced. Good afternoon, Kambili, Mrs. Ayomide greeted warmly, as if nothing unusual was happening. Kambili's voice was steady. Good afternoon, ma. Thank you for coming. It's fine, Ayomide said, I was going to say hi to you at the mall the other day, but you just ran off like you were seeing a ghost, Ayomide said, still smiling. But Kambili's face was set. You took him and left without saying goodbye, without caring if I lived or died. You and your husband did not even give me a chance to see the child I carried for months and went under the knife for. Why? Why did you not give me a chance to say goodbye at least? Ayomide became sober. I'm really sorry, Kambili, but things did not go as planned. Everything happened so fast, and we thought it would be easier for all of us if you did not see the child. Considering all that you have been through. So why have you returned? Kambili fired back. We returned because we had to. Debo's father died a few months back. Someone has to oversee the family's establishments, Ayomide said calmly. They sat opposite each other for a few moments. Only the clinking of cups and the low murmur of other customers filled the air. Then Kambili leaned forward, her eyes sharp. I want my child back, she said quietly. Ayomide was taken aback. She forced a laugh. What are you saying? The child is mine, my egg, my husband's sperm. We went through IVF together and you signed a contract, remember? Kambili shook her head. No. The boy I saw looks exactly like my late son, and I have checked with the doctor. There is a possibility the IVF failed, and my pregnancy came from my late husband. That child is my flesh and blood, not yours, and I want him back. Ayomide's face stiffened. She looked away, reaching for her cup, but her hands trembled slightly. She could not believe that this was happening after all these years. Please, Kambili, she whispered after a long pause. Don't do this. You gave him to us willingly. We had a signed legal agreement and we paid you well. The law recognizes him as our child. Kambili's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained fierce. I agreed to give him away because I thought he wasn't mine. Because I thought he came from you. But now I know the truth and I cannot sit back and watch another woman raise my only child. The only thing I have left in this world. I'll give you back all that you gave me. I just want my child back. Ayomide's eyes darted nervously. So what do you expect me to do, Kambili? Return a child I have loved and nurtured, raised for 6 whole years. Kambili's voice cracked with pain. And what do you expect me to do, Ayomide? Watch another woman call my son hers? Watch him grow up and not be a part of his life? No, I will not. I don't care how long it takes or how hard I must fight, but I will get my son back. Ayomide's face hardened. You have no proof that he's your son. A resemblance is not enough proof. Kambili smiled. Then a DNA will be in order. I will take a maternity test gladly, and your husband will take a paternity test. But I doubt the both of you will do it willingly. So, I'll see you both in court. My lawyer will contact you. She stood up, her shoulders straight. Her tears wiped away with determination. I lost him once, she said firmly. and I will not lose him again. Ayomide sat frozen, her lips trembling. She had no words to reply as Kambili walked out of the cafe. The house was quiet that night. Ife had gone to bed early after playing too hard. Ayomide sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands trembling. She had been holding this inside since the day they met at the mall. But now, things were getting out of hand. She could no longer carry it. Debo, she began, her voice low. We need to talk. Her husband looked up from his laptop. Talk about what? You look pale. She pressed her fingers to her temple. It's about Kambili. At the mention of the name, his brows knit. What about her? She saw Ife and I at the mall the other day. We said nothing to each other, but she called today, said we needed to talk. And Debo, she says Ife is hers. She wants him back. Debo closed the laptop slowly, his jaw clenching. What did you just say? She says the IVF must have failed. The boy looks exactly like her late son. And Debo, I cannot deny that fact. Even I, sometimes I have wondered too. The resemblance is too striking. Debo shot to his feet. You were going to see her and you kept it from me? I was afraid, Ayomide sobbed. I thought if I told you, you would panic. I thought I could handle it. But now she confronted me. She wants a DNA. Worse still, she's taking this to court. Debo's hands balled into fists. His voice thundered through the room. She signed a contract. Do you hear me? That woman signed a contract. A legal contract. And that child is ours in the eyes of the law. I paid for the procedure. We have medical records, the signed agreement, the birth document, every single thing. Ayomide flinched at his anger. But Debo, what if the doctor is right? What if the child is really not from the IVF at all? What if... Stop it, Debo roared. He paced the room, breathing hard. Do you hear yourself? You're talking like a guilty woman. Do you want to hand over the boy after all these years? Never. Ife is my son, and no one will take him away from me. Ayomide's tears spilled freely. I'm not saying we hand him over. I'm saying that maybe we should just take him and run away. Run somewhere far. Leave this city. Leave this country if we must. Go back to the UK. She reached for his arms. Before this thing goes beyond our control, let's just go. Debo pulled his arm away sharply. Run? Do you think running is the solution to the problem? Do you know what running will mean? It will mean admitting guilt. It will mean dragging our names in the mud. Do you think we will ever escape this? No. We will stand our ground and we will fight. After all, we did not steal this child. But Debo, no. His eyes burned. That boy is ours legally, and that is what matters. She can cry all she wants, and if she wants a DNA, then fine, so be it. We will be waiting for her lawyer. Listen, we have money, we have the documents, and with that, we will have the system on our side. If she wants war, she will get one. Kambili did take the matter to court. For starters, the court requested that a DNA result be presented on the day of the first official hearing. That day, the courtroom was quiet. Family and friends sat in the back rows with a few reporters. Kambili sat beside her lawyer, her palms sweaty. Across the room, Mr. and Mrs. Debo sat stiffly. Ayomide's eyes red from many sleepless nights. Ife was too young to understand what was going on, and so he was kept away with relatives. The judge entered, and the room became even more silent than a graveyard. "Call the case," the registrar announced. Kambili's lawyer rose. "My lord, we are here to establish the truth of maternity and paternity of the minor, Ife." The judge nodded. "Proceed." A clerk stepped forward with sealed documents. The judge tore the envelope open and adjusted his glasses. According to the DNA analysis, the judge read slowly, the child shares a 99.9% maternity match with the plaintiff, Mrs. Kambili Okoro. A murmur spread through the court. Kambili gasped, covering her mouth with her hands as tears rolled down. Ebube, seated behind her, whispered, "Thank you, Jesus." The judge continued. Furthermore, the alleged father, Mr. Debo, shows no biological connection to the child. Everywhere scattered, the entire courtroom erupted. People were whispering. Even some reporters forgot themselves and were caught up in the whole chaos. Kambili broke down, sobbing. "That's my son. Oh God, I said it. Thank you, Jesus." Her lawyer placed a hand on her shoulder to calm her down. "Relax, this is not over yet." On the other side, Mr. Debo was fuming. "This is not possible." The judge banged the gavel. "Order in the court." When silence returned, he turned to the lawyers. "The evidence raises serious questions. How could this occur when an IVF procedure was carried out?" The Debo's lawyer stood up. "My lord, exactly our point. The procedure was properly documented. It is impossible for the plaintiff to be the biological mother." Kambili's lawyer shot back. "With respect, science does not lie. If DNA says she is the mother, then she is the mother." The judge, wanting to know what truly happened, adjourned the case and requested that an IVF specialist be brought into court on the next hearing. Fast forward to the day of the next hearing, an IVF specialist was brought to court. He introduced himself as Dr. Fashola, a fertility specialist. The judge asked, "Doctor, can you explain how such a situation could arise? IVF was performed, yet the child belongs genetically to the surrogate herself." The doctor nodded. "Yes, my lord. In some cases, implantation fails, meaning the embryo placed in the womb does not attach. If the woman later engages in intercourse naturally, she can become pregnant in that same cycle. It would appear as though the IVF worked, when in fact, it did not." Gasps filled the courtroom again. All eyes turned to Kambili. The judge narrowed his eyes. "Mrs. Okoro, did you engage in intercourse around the period of the IVF procedure?" Kambili swallowed hard. Yes, my lord, she whispered. 1 week after the procedure, my husband was relocating to Jos at the time. It was our last night together before he left. The courtroom exploded again. Kambili rose to her feet, tears streaming down her face. My lord, I did not know it would lead to anything. I also thought the pregnancy came from the IVF. It was not until the other day at the mall. But now that I know that boy is my blood, my late husband's only child, please don't let me lose him again. Her voice broke and the courtroom went silent for a moment. Even Ayomide looked down, unable to meet her eyes. The judge leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. This case, he said slowly, has become far more complicated than I anticipated. This court is adjourned for 1 week. Both parties should return prepared for their final submissions and closing statements. The gavel fell. Bang. Ayomide gripped her husband's arms as they walked out of the courtroom. She said nothing until they entered their car. Then suddenly her strength gave way. She broke down in tears, her voice trembling. Debo, let's just take Ife and run. I've told you this thing before, please. I can't bear this anymore. Every time I look at him, I see him slipping away from us. Let's just disappear. Let's go far away, anywhere. Debo closed his eyes, his own chest burning. Ayo, don't say that. You know the law. If we run, they will find us. They will say we kidnapped him and we will lose him forever. But Debo, she sobbed, you were inside that courtroom. How can we win against that? This is the end of the road. I don't know what we'll do if we lose that boy. Debo took her face in his hands. We will not lose him because God is still God and sometimes miracles still happen. A miracle did happen. The next morning, the Debos were still mourning their fate when their lawyer, Barrister Osho, knocked at their door. His face was serious, but his eyes carried a glint of triumph. Look, I have something, he said, holding up a brown file. Debo and Ayomide exchanged worried glances. What is it? Debo asked. The lawyer placed the file on the table and pulled out a paper. The contract. The surrogacy contract. I stayed up all night, reading every line again, and I found it. He tapped on the page with his pen. Clause 3. It clearly states, the surrogate mother shall abstain from all sexual intercourse within the first trimester after embryo transfer. Ayomide's mouth dropped open. So, you're saying because she slept with her husband? The lawyer nodded firmly. Yes. She breached the agreement intentionally. And at this point, the DNA result doesn't matter anymore. Legally, her claim is void. The law will still stand with us. Debo exhaled, his knees weak. He sank into a chair. Barrister, how did I even miss this? So, we still have hope. You have more than hope, the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. You have the law on your side. We are winning this case. For the first time in weeks, Ayomide smiled through tears. She gripped her husband's hands tightly. Maybe, just maybe, God has not forgotten us after all, she thought to herself. The final day of the hearing came. Kambili woke up early. The sun had never looked so bright. For the first time in years, her heart was light. She wore one of her finest clothes and smiled at her reflection. Her mother was in the kitchen cooking a pot of jollof rice and fried turkey. The aroma filled the compound. Nay, today is the day. We will bring our boy home, Mama said with confidence. Kambili laughed softly, tears of joy in her eyes. Yes, Mama. Today my son comes home. I'm sure Chukwuka will be so happy wherever he is right now. Relatives gathered for the occasion. They wanted to be there to celebrate with Kambili. Together they set out for the courthouse. Her steps were light, her voice humming a hymn under her breath, with a bright smile plastered on her face. The court was tense. The judge entered and silence filled the air. After opening statements, Barrister Osho rose with confidence. My lord, with your permission, I present into evidence the original surrogacy contract signed by the plaintiff, Mrs. Kambili Okoro. The judge adjusted his glasses as the lawyer approached. Proceed. Osho held the paper high. Clause 3, my lord, clearly states that the surrogate is forbidden from intercourse throughout the first trimester. And by her own confession, in this very court, Mrs. Okoro violated this clause. Therefore, her claims to custody are invalid by law. My lord, by breaching this agreement, she voided her rights. The child legally belongs to the intended parents, Mr. and Mrs. Debo. The words struck Kambili like thunder. She jumped to her feet, trembling. My lord, please. I did not mean to break the contract. My husband was leaving me. He was relocating, and it was our last night together. What was I supposed to do? Was I to deny him? Was I to deny myself that one night before he left? My lord, that was the last night we spent together. That was the last night I saw my husband. The courtroom fell silent. Some were wiping tears, others shaking their heads. But the judge, though moved, kept his composure. Mrs. Okoro, this court recognizes your pain. Truly, this matter is tragic, but the law is clear. Contracts must be honored. If we bend the law for sympathy, then justice itself will collapse. And by the way, Mrs. Okoro, if the court grants you custody of this child, it will not go well with the boy in question. I'm sure that he has built an unbreakable bond with his current parents. Uprooting him suddenly will devastate him. We also need to put that into consideration. He sighed heavily. Therefore, this is my judgment. The custody of the minor shall remain with Mr. and Mrs. Debo. The gavel struck. Bang. Kambili let out a piercing cry and fell to the floor. Her relatives rushed to her, holding her as she wept uncontrollably. Mama, they have taken him again. They have taken my son, she cried, her voice raw with anguish. Her mother held her tightly, rocking her like a child. Nee, don't cry, please. Don't do this here. But Kambili only wept louder. Her heart was shattered. Across the room, Ayomide clutched her husband's arm, tears running down her own face. They had won, but it felt like a victory soaked in blood. She did not feel the triumph. she was supposed to feel. Kambili returned home that evening with heavy steps, her legs shaking as though they carried the weight of the whole world. Her relatives walked quietly beside her. Nobody had the courage to say anything. When they got to the house, Kambili went straight into her room and shut the door. She sat on the floor, leaned her back against the bed, and burst into tears. Loud, bitter, uncontrollable tears. Ebube tried to open the door, calling her gently. "Sister, please open. You don't need to be alone. You need to speak to someone. Please." Kambili dragged herself up and unlocked the door. The moment Ebube stepped in, Kambili fell into her arms, crying like a baby. "Why me, Ebube? Why is it always me? Why is my life like this? Am I cursed? First, Chukwuka left me. Then Chinonso drowned. And now this. I was so close to holding my child. And just like that, they took him from me." Ebube's own eyes filled with tears, but she tried to stay strong. "I know, sister. I know. But remember what the judge said. The child will just end up being confused. He may suffer if they drag him from one parent to another. It will also not be fair to him. Think about him too." Kambili shook her head violently. "What about me? Who will think about me? Who will heal the emptiness in my heart? Who will wipe away the memory of my child, calling another woman mommy when I sit here alone and miserable?" Her mother entered quietly, carrying a cup of water. She placed it beside Kambili and sat near her. "My daughter, life has been cruel to you. I cannot lie. But God sees your tears. Don't think He has forgotten you." But Kambili only wept harder. She pressed her hands against her chest. "Mama, my heart feels like it has been ripped apart. I thought today would be my day of joy. I dressed in my best clothes, and you cooked for us to welcome him home. Now look at me, empty again." Everyone tried to console her, but Kambili would not stop crying. The sound of her sobs filled the entire house, and everyone else shed silent tears with her. Meanwhile, the Debors were still celebrating their victory quietly in their home. Ayomide's heart was filled with joy. She was relieved that the confusion was over. However, Debor, though happy, felt uneasy. The media attention was too much. Every channel had their faces. Every blog carried one headline or the other with their different narratives. Some stories even painted Ayomide as a desperate woman who stole another woman's child. Then one evening, about a week later, Debo dropped his phone on the table in frustration. He had had enough. The social media was going mad. "Ayo, we can't live like this. Look, our son's face is everywhere. People stop me on the road to ask questions. Some even take pictures secretly. This is not safe." Ayomide sighed deeply. "I know. Even in church yesterday, some women kept staring at me as if I was a criminal. It's so suffocating." Debo reached for her hands. "Then let's move. We'll return to the UK. That was home for us for 6 years. At least there we'll find peace and we'll be able to protect Ife. What about the business? Ayomide asked. I'll have someone take care of it. Then I'll come home every now and then to take care of what needs to be taken care of. Ife's safety is very important right now. In fact, at this point, it is top priority. They both agreed to return to the UK. And within 2 weeks, everything was set. Their documents were ready, tickets were booked, bags were packed. However, the morning of their departure finally came, and with it came another wahala. Everyone was getting all dressed and ready for the long journey. They were all excited to be finally leaving their past behind. Ife too was getting ready in his room. The maid was helping him get dressed. As the maid tried to dress him that morning, she noticed his hands felt cold. She touched his forehead. He was sweating. Before she could ask if he was okay, Ife's little body went limp and he collapsed on the bed. The maid screamed at the top of her voice. Madam, Oga, come quick, oh. Ife is not moving. Ayomide, who was fastening her earrings in the bedroom, froze. What did you just say? She screamed, dashing out. Debo was buttoning his shirt when he heard. His heart dropped. Both of them ran into Ife's room. And there on the small blue bed, their son lay motionless, eyes closed, lips pale. Ife, Ayomide cried, dropping to her knees. Wake up, my baby, please wake up. She shook him gently, her hands trembling. No, Debo, do something. He's not breathing well. Debo's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. He bent down, scooped Ife into his arms, and practically flew out of the house. Ayomide stumbled behind, still crying, her mind spinning. Just a moment ago, they were ready to travel to safety. Now, all their plans had scattered like ashes in the wind. At the hospital, the doctors did their best to stabilize Ife, while several tests and examinations were carried out. The results showed that little Ife's kidney was failing and he needed a kidney transplant as soon as possible. Ayomide's hand flew to her mouth. Jesus Christ, a kidney transplant at his age? He's still so young. Debo swallowed hard, his voice shaking. Doctor, what do we need to do? Money is not a problem. Just tell us anything, we will do it. The doctor nodded slowly. I understand, Mr. Debo, but unfortunately, this is not about money alone. Kidney transplant depends on finding a matching donor, but then there is a very long queue. Many patients are waiting in line to find a donor. Ayomide shook her head in disbelief, tears running down her face. No, there must be another way. He's just a little boy. The doctor looked at them with pity. We can put him on the transplant list, but I must be honest with you, it may take too long. That is why we usually advise parents and relatives to test themselves first. Sometimes one of you may be a match. That was where the problem lay. They were not biologically related to the boy. Neither was any of their relatives. But regardless, they both tested, hoping that by some miracle, one of them would match. Unfortunately, the results came out and none of them were a match. Ayomide broke down instantly. She slid to the floor, wailing. God, why? Why, my child? Haven't I suffered enough? Deborah bent down, holding her shoulders tightly. Ayo, listen to me. We cannot give up. If we don't match, then someone else might. But how long will it take? Deborah, how long? The queue is long. You heard the doctor. What if we lose him before then? What if the dialysis doesn't hold up before then? Deborah paused, his jaw tightening. Then almost in a whisper he said, there's one other option. Ayomide looked up at him with swollen eyes. What option? Kambili. The doctor said his parents and relatives could be a match. She's his biological mother. Just maybe she'll be a match. Ayomide laughed. She stared at her husband as though he had lost his mind. Deborah, are you even listening to yourself? I mean, can you hear yourself? After everything that has happened, what makes you think she will even want to listen to us? She will laugh in our faces. Deborah's eyes was desperate. Ayo, this is not about pride or shame or the past. This is about Ife. If we don't try, we may lose him. And I cannot afford to lose him. I will beg if I have to. I will spend every single dime I own, if need be. Ayomide shook her head as she broke into tears again. But she knew Deborah was right. Kambili was their remaining lifeline. Deborah sat at the hospital corridor, his phone heavy in his hands. For several minutes, he stared at Kambili's number, his chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. Ayomide sat by Ife's bedside inside the ward, her face buried in her palms. Finally, Deborah pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice. Kambili. His voice trembled as soon as he heard her soft hello. She froze when she recognized the voice. For a few seconds, her mind went blank. Then she regained her composure. Deborah, why are you calling me? What do you want from me? Deborah swallowed hard, his voice breaking. Please, Kambili. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now, but it's Ife. He's very sick. His kidneys have failed and he needs a transplant immediately. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. What? What did you just say? Kambili said, almost too loud. He's dying, Kambili. None of us is a match. The queue is very long. He may not make it. But the doctor said one of his relatives could be a match and you are his mother. Maybe you can save him. Her heart started beating faster. Without even thinking, she leapt to her feet, tears scraping loudly against the floor. Which hospital? She asked. Deborah quickly gave her the address. Ebube, who had been folding clothes nearby, turned sharply. Coming where, sister? Have you lost your mind? After all they did to you, after stealing your son and dragging you through courts, humiliating you like that, now they are calling because they need you for something. They need a part of your body. And you want to run there. Kambili's hands trembled as she clutched her phone, but her voice was steady. Ebube, Ife is my son, the flesh of my flesh. I am his mother. I don't care what anyone says. He is mine. And if my kidney is the only thing keeping him alive, then I will give it. Ebube was visibly angry. Sister Kambili, but what about you? Do you even care about your own life? Do you think those people care? Once they get what they want, they will discard you again. Don't you see that this is dangerous? Kambili's voice broke, but her determination only grew stronger. I am not doing this for them. If I sit here and Ife dies, I will never forgive myself. Ibube, I carried that boy for 9 months. I felt his first kick. I still carry the scar from where he was brought out from. Nothing can erase that. He is my son, and I will not let anything happen to him. I will not sit here and watch him die when I can do something. She grabbed her small bag from the table and stormed out of the house, flagging down the nearest taxi. Inside the taxi, her hands shook uncontrollably. She could not believe that a day like this would come again. The moment Kambili arrived at the hospital, doctors wasted no time. After a round of urgent tests, the results came out positive. Her kidney was a perfect match for Ife. The entire room sighed in relief. Debo almost sank to his knees. Ayomide covered her mouth with trembling hands, tears spilling down her face. For the first time in days, hope had returned. They prepped Kambili immediately for surgery, and within the hour, Kambili and Ife were wheeled into the theatre, lying side by side under the bright light, mother and child, fighting for their lives together for the second time. For Debo and Ayomide, those hours felt like years. They paced up and down the waiting area, hands clasped, unable to sit still. Ayomide kept whispering prayers under her breath. Debo, who hardly ever prayed, found himself muttering the same words over and over again. Please God, don't let them die. Don't let them die. Inside the operating room, the surgeons worked carefully, their movements swift but precise. The air was tense. Everyone was focused. The surgery took roughly 7 hours. Finally, after what seemed like forever, the doors swung open. A nurse stepped out, her eyes tired, but there was relief there. The surgery went smoothly. They both made it, she announced. Debo collapsed onto a chair, covering his face with his hands as tears of gratitude poured down. Ayomide sobbed openly, whispering, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you." Hours later, Kambili opened her eyes in the recovery room. She was still very weak, but very much alive. Just a few steps away lay Ife on his own bed, hooked to drips but breathing steadily. When Debo entered and saw them lying side by side, alive, he whispered with trembling lips, "This looks so familiar, Ayo." She gave him life twice. Once, the day she birthed him, and now again. Ayomide stood silently, torn between gratitude and guilt, staring at the woman who had given them life twice. Days after the surgery, when Kambili was strong enough to sit up, Ayomide and Debo came into her hospital room. Their faces were full of relief and gratitude. Debo carried a bouquet of fresh flowers, while Ayomide held a small fruit basket. Kambili gave a faint smile as they entered, though her body was still weak from the operation. Debo was the first to speak, his voice trembling. "Kambili, thank you. Thank you very much. You saved our son. You saved our family, even after everything that has happened. We can never ever repay you. You're such a selfless person. Ayomide's eyes filled with tears as she stepped closer. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the pain, all the harsh words, all the times we have shut you out. You did not deserve any of it. Please forgive us. Kambili shook her head slowly. I did not do any of this for the both of you. I did it for Ife. No matter what, he is my flesh and blood. That's all that matters. Ayomide reached forward, gently taking Kambili's hands. That is exactly why we want you to be a part of his life. You are his mother. A true mother, a woman who would risk everything and anything to save her child. It would be heartless to keep you away from him. Kambili's eyes widened. She drew in a shaky breath and whispered, You don't have to do this. I've already come to terms with the fact that he cannot be mine. The judge was right. If I try to claim him, it will only confuse him. I just want him to be happy and healthy, even if I have to watch from afar. Deborah placed her hand gently on her shoulders. There is nothing wrong with having two mothers, Kambili. Yes, he may be confused at first, but he will get used to it. We want you in his life. We want him to grow up knowing the amazing woman who gave birth to him. We want you to become a part of our family. Please, Kambili. For a long moment, Kambili said nothing. Her lips trembled. And then, without warning, tears of joy spilled down her cheeks. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed softly, not from pain this time, but from relief. For the first time in years, she no longer felt alone. Thank you. I don't know how this will work out, but this is more than I ever dreamed of, and I cannot wait to have him in my arms for the first time ever, Kambili said through her tears. The future was uncertain for all of them. For Kambili, for Ayomide, for Debo, and for little Ife. But one thing was sure. Kambili was no longer on the outside. She was now finally a part of her son's world, just as she wanted. And of course, I'm very sure Chukwuka would be happy wherever he was. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button, and to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Remember, like, share, drop a comment and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.